Tesla will be the official NACS charging standard. So yeah, a lot of these OEMs are jumping on board and signing up to be part of this Tesla NACS charging standard. So big deal in the industry. Next slide. This I thought was interesting that there are 5 states that have already gone through the RFP process and have been awarded their money, have their money in their banks, and are getting ready to start their national electric vehicle infrastructure, interstate DC fast charger installations. So those are Pennsylvania, Colorado, Ohio, Hawaii, and Maine. Arizona, I think we're still in drafting the RFP. It doesn't show as orange, but I've checked with ADOT and they're still working on getting the RFP prepared and getting it out on the street. So it's really interesting to see how some of these states are way more ahead of others. So I found that interesting, wanted to share that. Next slide, please. Also in the news this week, 20,000 Tesla Universal EV chargers are coming to the Hilton properties. Why I thought this was important is it just shows Tesla's commitment to broadening the charging network and reducing the range anxiety. So 20,000 more coming for hotel properties. Next slide. So again, we're always being asked the question, what's the life cycle of batteries? And once they're maybe no longer valid for use in a vehicle, there's still a lot of energy left in those battery packs. So Nissan is using the old Leaf batteries for portable power packs to provide emergency support or just simply powering some gadgets. So again, it's just something to show there is still life left in vehicle battery packs for other uses. I've seen stories where they've taken 5 or 6 skateboard batteries out of a vehicle and used them as a energy storage system. So they're not at their end of their life cycle. There's still power and usage for these batteries. Next slide, please. Siemens Foundation has invested over, oh, that's a typo, 30, I believe it's 30 million, sorry, left off the M, 30 million over a 10-year period for workforce development for the EV charging sector. Why I thought this was important is I'm starting to work with our community and economic development on workforce development needs for EVs and EV charging systems. We see a huge gap in the need for electricians, technicians, software techs, chip manufacturers, you name it, the guys that fix it, build it, plan it. So it was nice to see that 30 million is being invested in workforce development, because if we want to continue to be known as the Electric Valley, then we've got to upstand our workforce development and find out what kind of needs are required out there, where the gaps are, and then start working with our local educational institutions, our community colleges, our universities to start standing up workforce development and training programs. So I thought this was interesting that somebody has taken note and putting a lot of money into the workforce development concerns. Next slide, please. Adoption. So we always want to know where the state of Arizona falls in adoption rates. So based on this table I found, and it's recent 2023, Arizona is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We are number 7 in EV registrations for the state, which is great news. And we're not even a zero emission vehicle state. So lots of adoption. It's going to continue to grow. So takeaway, we're in the top 10 for EV registrations for the state. Next slide. And I thought this was an interesting slide or graphic I ran across. You know, as I mentioned, we are beginning to be known as Electric Valley, and there's a lot more going on in the state of Arizona, but this one just highlights the core power battery manufacturer that's being developed out in Buckeye. And I believe LG and I forget who the partner is. They're doing something out in Mesa. So this is just to show all of these new battery plants that are coming online in the United States. So certainly an uptick in battery manufacturing. Next slide. And this one I thought was really, really interesting. So Germany is going to mandate EV chargers at gas stations. 80% of all service stations are going to be offering DC fast charger options. 90K, 90,000 to 1 million EV charging stations at gas stations by 2030. So just think about that for a minute. If we in the United States were to mandate EV charging at our gas stations, what that would look like. So Germany's, we understand the European countries are ahead of us, and we certainly are taking note and using some of their best practices, but Germany mandating chargers at gas stations. Next slide. Oh, and this one really caught my attention. So Kentucky, state of Kentucky, the installation of public chargers to quantify the amount of electricity dispensed from EV chargers. If you install an electric charger on a business property, you have to pay a monthly usage tax to the state. Now think about the implications of that. This may result in less EV chargers being installed for public use. If I have to pay a usage tax to the state, I'm going to think about that and maybe not install some EV chargers. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on Kentucky and seeing how this plays out, but it could have strong implications in the amount of chargers that get deployed. So that was an interesting turn of events in that state. Next slide. So that's all I have in the news. There's certainly lots more going on, but those are just a snippet of things that are happening since we've last met. And as I mentioned, I'm going to turn it over to Danae, but we want to talk about when we get a chance to meet in person next month, or November, I'm sorry, what do we want to talk about? What do you guys want to hear? What are some of the issues and concerns? So I'm going to turn it over to Danae and take it away.